Welcome students and parents to the 2020-2021 Crivets Co-Curricular Code video. This video will take place of our traditional in-person meeting that we normally have at the start of the year and highlight some of the things in our co-curricular code for both middle school and high school. The purpose of this video is to provide a flyover for parents and students who plan on participating in co-curricular activities here at Crivets. An electronic copy has been emailed to all parents and guardians that have students in the district that are entering grades 6 through 12 this upcoming year. You can also find a copy of our code on our district website as well. There are a number of goals that we as coaches and administrators try to attain for our student athletes who participate in co-curricular activities here at Crivets. There are about 13 different goals that are listed in the co-curricular code packet. On this slide, a few of those are highlighted. Not once on here does it say that a goal that we have is to win a conference championship, win a state championship for that matter, or for any students to obtain a college scholarship athletically. Winning here is a byproduct for our students and our teams, and we want to recognize the fact that co-curricular participation is in fact a privilege, and with those privileges come extra responsibilities. Our co-curricular programs are broken down by groups, as you can see on the list here. In Group 1, we have all of our WIAA interscholastic athletics, our cheer and our dance team in Group 1. In Group 2, we have our forensics, our solo ensemble, our senior class play, student council, the class officers related to student council, our dance courts like homecoming and prom, Badger boys and girls, which is hosted at Ripon College for juniors, commencement speakers at graduation, our IQ team and our drill team, and in Group 3 we round out with our band and choir, our jazz band, National Honor Society, yearbook, and science club. For the intents and purposes of this video, we will be referring to most of the consequences covered in the co-curricular code to Group 1 activities. But please keep in mind that many of our students participate in at least 2, if not 3 different groups of co-curriculars, which is the nice thing about attending a small school, is that students have many opportunities to participate in an array of co-curricular activities. In order to participate in our co-curricular activities, particularly in Group 1 activities here at Crivets, student athletes must meet all WIAA requirements for eligibility. A number of this paperwork can be found online with our online registration that we started last year. So if you have a family account that you had from last year, you can certainly log into that family account and recertify your students for this upcoming year. To fulfill the registration process, we are asking not only for families to register their students online and fill out all the medical paperwork and transportation paperwork online, but we are also requiring that a WIAA physical or alternate year card be turned in to the appropriate office prior to the start of practice for this upcoming year. We also are requiring students to complete a quiz related to this video quiz and the co-curricular code. On top of that, just like last year, we will be requiring all families to submit a $100 participation fee prior to the first day of practice. A quick reminder on the attendance policy: students must be present for the second half of the school day to participate in practices or a scheduled contest or event on that day unless approved by the principal or athletic director. So for example, if you have a dentist appointment or a doctor's appointment scheduled for the afternoon, the day of a practice or a game, more likely than not that would get excused and you would be able to participate that evening at practice or in a game. But if a student is suspended from school for any reason, this suspension shall include any practices, performances, and competitions that occurred during this time period. So this also includes in-school suspension. So a reminder for students that if you get an in-school suspension or an out-of-school suspension, you are not eligible to practice and or play in any contest during that time period. And a lot of teams have team rules specific to attending practices the day before a game in order to be eligible for a game. So please keep that in mind with your behavior in school, that you are trying to avoid being suspended for any reason, because that will then dictate your participation in practice or games that particular time frame. We do allow dual sport participation here at Crivets, meaning that student athletes can participate in more than one interscholastic sport in the same season, but it has to have approval of the advisor and coach of those activities, the parents, and the athletic director, along with the principal. A written plan specifically designating which practices and games and meets and contests that individual athlete will attend will be established before approval will be given, and this will have to be done prior to competition of that particular sports season. So what that means is that a student here can participate in cross country and volleyball in the fall. They could participate in track and golf in the spring, but the only stipulation is that they have to have a written plan in place on which games and meets that they will be attending. And they also have to declare one of those sports as their primary sport. Individuals who voluntarily sever their team affiliations and or quit during the season and later have a change of heart, that's really going to be up to the coach and at the coach's discretion if they can come back onto the team. And also each program has a little bit different system on awarding letters for their sports. Students who had code violations during the season are not eligible for any special end-of-season awards like Most Valuable Player, Most Improved, All-Conference, any All-State awards in which a code violation has occurred. In terms of our transportation guidelines here at Crivets, Group 1 or 2 members must use the mode of transportation that's provided by the school. So if a participant travels to an away activity with the school group in a school van or on a school bus, you must return with that group unless a transportation waiver is signed by the parent or guardian that specifically states that the participant will be provided alternative transportation home from a school event. So parents, please keep in mind when you fill out that transportation waiver that you are providing specific names of people that will be taking your son or daughter home from our activities. To be academically eligible to participate in co-curricular activities, we have 2 different versions. We have the high school version and the junior high version. With the high school version, students will be ineligible if they receive 1 failing grade for a quarter marking period. So a student who does not meet the standards required for academic eligibility will be ineligible for 3 weeks. That's 15 consecutive scheduled school days and nights, or in the case of fall sports where practices start before school, it is 21 days and nights. So that ineligibility period will start the next school day. So if the quarter ends on a Friday, it'll start that following Monday of the marking period. At the end of that 3-week period, the student will need to obtain a sheet from the high school office and go around to all their teachers and get signatures and mark down what grade they are currently getting. And if they're passing all classes, they can turn that sheet into the athletic director, and then the student will become eligible. Once the student turns in their sheet to the athletic director and they are passing all their classes, they will remain eligible until the end of the grading period or the end of the quarter. If they are failing any classes after that 3-week period, they are, in a sense, academically ineligible for the remainder of that grading period. The academically ineligible participant must attend practices and events with the team, but will not be able to participate in any event. In the case where events are going to interfere with any school time missed, more likely than not, a decision will be made by the principal and or athletic director that student will not be able to travel with the team if they are, in fact, missing a significant amount of school and class time. Keep in mind that students that are moving from the 8th grade to the 9th grade will be held to the same academic standards. So basically, any incoming freshman will be ineligible for Group 1 activities as a freshman their fall sports season if they have 1 failing grade during the 4th quarter of their 8th grade year. The academic policy for the junior high school is a little bit different than that of the high school. For the junior high, the athletic director will provide all the teachers in grades 6 through 8 a roster of the players and participants during each season. The teachers will then continuously check and monitor the grades of the athletes and participants, and they will report all failing grades to the athletic director. Once the athletic director gets notification that a participant is failing, they will notify the coach and advisor. And then when the coach and advisor is made aware of that athlete's participant's failing grade, they'll inform the athlete that they are able to practice but not be able to compete in games until that failing grade is improved to at least a D- or higher. If it just so happens that we are informed the day of a contest or a game that student is failing, they will be able to participate that night, but the academic ineligibility will begin the next day. In terms of our penalty guidelines, when we are enforcing consequences, we take the number of scheduled contests in a season that is used to base the length of the suspension on. So if we have a 20-game schedule, the athlete would be penalized 5 games, since that is 25% of the season. All suspension totals will be rounded up. So if an athlete is suspended for 25% of the season and it's a 17-game schedule, the total would be 4.25 contests, but we would round that up to 5 contests. Keep in mind that participants must be in good standing with the team until the season's end in order to complete any suspension. So if an athlete happens to quit a sport, the full suspension will still be in effect for the next sports season. So one cannot simply just go out for football, serve their 3-game suspension, and then quit. They will have to be in good standing with the team and finish the season out in order to have that suspension fully served. Multiple suspensions and or academic ineligibility must be served consecutively and may not be served concurrently. So what that means is if a student is academically ineligible and also has a code violation, that code violation suspension cannot be served until the athlete is academically eligible. And in a sense, with suspensions, they need to be figured and must be served at the highest level that the student athlete is participating in during the course of a season. So example, in football, we have a number of our players that play JV and varsity. That would be considered the suspension taking place during the varsity schedule if they are in fact playing both. As student athletes, it is important to understand that you represent our school and our community. So in essence, there is no such thing as responsible use of any controlled substances or mood-altering chemicals like alcohol or tobacco, including e-cigarettes, by any high school students. Adolescent use with alcohol, tobacco, and drugs is against the law and jeopardizes the student's health and safety. So flat out, if you decide that you want to use alcohol, tobacco, or drugs, as coaches, we do not want that climate on our teams. We feel as coaches and administrators that parents and guardians have a right to be informed. So if there's any investigations that take place where it is found that a student athlete has been consuming alcohol, drugs, or was in the presence of alcohol, drugs, and tobacco, we will definitely make a call home and inform those parents and guardians by any fines from school staff. If a student receives a code violation, that student may remain a practicing member of the team, group, or activity during the violation period. While under suspension, the student must be at all practice sessions and contests. If a participant misses a required practice, it may result in additional penalties determined by the coach. Keep in mind that any person reporting a violation must put the allegations in writing. The allegations cannot be based simply on hearsay. Any pictures of students involved in activities which violate the Co-Curricular Activities Code should also be signed as well, unless it's deemed acceptable proof by administration. But in this day and age of Photoshop and technology the way it is, we would appreciate anything that gets reported be signed. With our mere presence policy, it is very simple. No student can attend any gatherings where drugs or alcohol are present or are being consumed, and it will be the participant's responsibility to leave the party immediately when drugs or alcohol are present or are being illegally consumed. Immediately means the moment it is evident that alcohol or other drugs are present, not 5 minutes, not 10 minutes from now. You have to immediately leave. Please keep in mind, though, that this rule is not intended to pertain to any family gatherings such as weddings or anniversaries, birthdays, graduation parties, any establishments, licensed establishments. As long as students are following the intent of the activity code, they can be in the presence in those circumstances. But in those circumstances and under these guidelines, students cannot consume any alcohol or be in possession of alcoholic beverages even with parental permission or permission from other family members. Parental permission does not override the provisions of the co-curricular code. And do please keep in mind that each violation is cumulative throughout a participant's high school career. The best advice that we can give students is to really have a plan. Have a plan if you are going out and about with friends, and make sure that you have alternative transportation if, in fact, you run into a situation where drugs or alcohol are being consumed. And the best advice that we can give is to put yourself around people who do not participate in those activities. If a violation occurs of our co-curricular code, any participant who uses or possesses or purchases alcohol, tobacco products, including e-cigarettes, drugs, and other illegal substances, or any inhalants that produce a drug-like effect, will be suspended from participating in 25% of the total number of scheduled events for that particular activity. And those can carry over into the next seasons. The penalty for a first violation can be reduced to 10% of the total number of scheduled events if the student successfully participates in a school-approved assessment and follow-up program. So it is a 6-week assessment program, and in order to get past the third violation, that student will have to take those classes after the first violation. Once that program is completed, then the student will have to provide the proper paperwork to the administration proving that they have completed that program. The suspended individual will be required to practice and attend games out of uniform and may sit with the team for all contests during this suspension, unless of an extenuating circumstance, in which case the administration will notify that student athlete. If a participant receives a second violation, they will be suspended from 50% of the total number of scheduled events for that activity, and depending upon when that suspension takes place, there can be carryovers into other seasons. New for this year, if a participant receives a second violation within 6 months of receiving their first violation, they'll be suspended for all activities for 1 calendar year. This is a change from previous years where we used to have it if you got a second violation within the same academic year, you were suspended for a calendar year. We've now changed the wording to that, where if you receive a second one within 6 months, that calendar year suspension will take place. Just like the first violation, in order to get past the third violation, the student will have to take a school-approved assessment and follow up with the paperwork with that. And just like the first violation as well, the suspended individual will be required to practice and attend games out of uniform, and they may sit with the team for all contests during the suspension unless otherwise directed by administration. For a third violation, what we have here for a policy is basically a 3 strikes and you're out policy, with the exception of the fact that after their first violation and second violation, if they attend those school-approved assessments and follow-up programs through the county, then they may in fact be eligible for a additional violation before they're kicked out completely. But if a student did not participate in any school-approved assessment or follow-up program during the first and second violation, that student will be suspended from all Group 1 activities for the remainder of their high school career. Any students who want to participate in any co-curriculars here at Crivets and or obtain a parking permit to park in our parking lot will be subject to our suspensionless randomized drug testing program. This is a drug test that is a 12-panel test. We will draw 5 names every 2 weeks or so, roughly 10 students a month, for the duration of the school year. This program is specifically designed to deter students from drug use and to also keep parents informed. It is essential that we mention this, that no police will be involved on any positive tests. Simply put, if a student is found to have a non-negative result of the drug test, parents will be informed, and we will simply offer solutions through our guidance department in terms of any type of treatment or counseling related to this use. How this suspicionless randomized drug testing program works is that any students that are in the pool, meaning anyone that is participating in co-curriculars or anybody that has a parking permit, will be assigned a number by school administration, and those numbers will be given with no names to Bay Area Medical Center. Bay Area Medical Center has a computer program that will generate 5 numbers, and those 5 numbers will be drawn roughly every 2 weeks, and those students whose numbers match up will then be tested for that given time. So it may be a chance that a student can get tested 4 times in a year, or they get tested no times in a year. It's all computer generated. And any district students who choose to exercise the privilege of participating in any extracurricular activities must agree to participate in this program. If, in fact, that the participant refuses to take the drug test when they are randomly selected, it will be treated as a non-negative or a positive test, and that student will be given an activities code violation. In that case, there will be no use of the appeals process for refusal to take a drug test when randomly chosen to do so. Under this program, students do have the opportunity within a 24-hour notification window of a positive or a non-negative test result to have a sample tested at the family's expense. The student and parent guardian may consult with their primary care provider for a lab draw for a non-negative substance and a confirmatory test. The confirmatory test is the absolute test. So the administration will consult with the medical professionals to evaluate the results of the test when they come back in. Typically what that means is that this sample then will be sent down to a lab somewhere in Alabama, and it may take 7 to 10 days to get a result back. And in the case, if it comes back as a negative result, then the district will pay for that test to be done. If it comes back as a non-negative or a positive result with the confirmatory test, then that expense will fall on the family. We do have a self-reporting policy for our co-curricular code. If a student self-reports on an alcohol, tobacco, or drug-related code violation within 72 hours to a coach, a guidance counselor, administrator, an athletic director, they will have their penalty reduced from 25% to 10%, but this can only take place for the first violation. And it also has to be made prior to any staff awareness of the violation. Also, if the participant was issued a ticket by the police for a code violation, they cannot self-report under those guidelines. The administration has that information at their disposal. Please keep in mind that our co-curricular code is enforced year-round. Any violations that happen between seasons will be applied to the next season or activity in which a student participates. If a student is participating in more than one extracurricular activity at a time, which is very possible in a school of our size, the full consequence will apply to each activity. So they can't simply just serve the suspension in basketball and not have any suspension in student council or high Q. So it does pertain to all groups. For violations that occur during the summer months, that appropriate penalty will begin for all fall activities on the first day of practice. If they don't participate in a fall activity, then it'll just happen on the first day of practice the following season, whichever the participant participates in. When enforcing the consequences, the maximum number of scheduled contests will be used. If there is a fraction, consequences will be rounded up that was mentioned earlier. Another area of our co-curricular code that will be addressed are serious violations not relating to necessarily drugs and alcohol, but what we call conduct unbecoming of a student athlete. A student athlete who commits any of the below violations, it's impossible to have every single violation be put in one co-curricular code. The administration has the right to address the violations not covered by this code, including but not limited to any misdemeanors, felonies, any violations of statutory law, and those penalties will be assessed accordingly. And really, the seriousness of the offense will determine the penalty up to or including an athletic code violation. And these violations are cumulative with other code violations. So it could be anywhere along the lines of theft, vandalism, threatening of a staff member, camera usage in restricted areas, cell phone use in restricted areas, being charged with or committing a felony or a misdemeanor other than a traffic violation, a speeding ticket of sorts. Having a speeding ticket is a little bit different than going on a police chase, obviously. But any one of these and anyone that may not necessarily be mentioned can be considered conduct unbecoming of a student athlete. We do have an appeals process relating to our co-curricular code. If a violation occurs with a student athlete, that student athlete will be informed in writing by the athletic director, as well as a letter being sent home to the parent and guardian. Everyone will be informed. Once the student has been informed by administration of a decision to suspend, they may take that decision to the Board of Appeals. That appeal must be in writing and submitted to the athletic director within 10 days of notification of the athletic code violation. After that, the athletic director will set up a Board of Appeals that will consist of the following: a high school guidance counselor, 4 coaches and advisors or a faculty member, that coach and advisor of the sport or activity where the penalty will be applied, will not be part of this group. What will happen then is that the Board of Appeals will hear the participant's appeal and reasoning for the original decision as presented by the athletic director. They then will hear the participant, and a parent can be present as well. And once they hear both sides, they will make the final decision on the suspension based upon the evidence presented at the hearing. And it'll be submitted through a secret ballot to be reviewed at the meeting in witness to those that are present. The last thing I would like to cover today is our activity fee. We have been doing this now for a couple years, and it's been working out fairly decent. Each family is required to pay a $100 activity fee. This fee will be reimbursed at the end of the school year upon completion of working a minimum of 4 events for the Wolverine Sports Boosters in the concession stands at our home events. These events can be worked by the student athlete themselves, a parent guardian, a designee representing the individual family, but this fee will be for all Group 1 participants only. And those parents that have more than one student athlete in our programs only need to work a minimum of 4 events. So it's just $100 basically per family. If the student athlete or parent guardian does not complete the minimum requirement, they will not get reimbursed for the school year. Each sport, we've set it up where each coach will contact members of the team and have a schedule out, and parents and students can sign up for those home contests that they have been assigned to. Typically, they won't interfere with an event that they would have going on that evening. We've done that the last couple of years. It happened to work out pretty good. The checks and balances with this whole system is where when you work an event, a member of our Wolverine Sports Boosters will give you a slip. And once you collect 4 of those slips, you'll need to turn those into the office. In the past, we've had a little bit of confusion where people have hung on to their slips. We need those slips turned into the office. And then once you get your 4 slips turned in, you will get your money returned to you. If you happen to be paying by check for this, please make checks out to Crivets High School and date them June 1st of 2021. Student athletes, please keep in mind, in order to fulfill this requirement of the paperwork, you must complete the video quiz on the Google form that has been emailed to your parent and guardian. On behalf of the staff, the coaches, and the administration here at Crivets, we want to wish everyone a great and healthy upcoming school year. And go Wolverines!